Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to knit my Slouchy Mermaid beanie. This hat is knit from the brim up, starting with a 1x1 twisted rib, followed by a lateral braid, and the body of the hat is made up of the pangolin scale stitch, which is named after these cute little guys, and it is just this really beautiful scale-like pattern. This is what the crown looks like. And the body of the hat is made up of a 4-round repeat, so it is super simple and it knits up very quickly. So if this is something that interests you, stick around and I'll show you how it's done. For this project, you will need a number 4 medium worsted weight yarn. I'm using Hobby Lobby's I Love This Cotton in the color Parchment. I opted to use cotton because it's light, it's breathable, and I like the way that it drapes. It also has really good stitch definition, but you can use acrylic, wool, a blend, whatever fiber you like, so long as it is a number 4 medium worsted. You will also need a pair of 5mm and 4.5mm 16-inch circular knitting needles. You will need tape measure, a pair of scissors, a stitch marker, and a crochet hook, and I'm going to show you what we're using this for later. But once you have all your supplies gathered, feel free to jump ahead and get started. So using our smaller 4.5mm circular knitting needles, we are going to go ahead and cast on 96 stitches and join in the round. So for sake of saving time, I've already gone ahead and done that. But once you get your 96 stitches on your needles and you've joined in the round, we are going to begin by knitting a twisted rib. So we are going to be knitting one and purling one all the way around. But instead of going into your loop from the front as you would do traditionally, so when you knit, you go through the front of the loop. To create a twisted brim, we are going to be knitting and purling through the back of our loop, like so. So to begin, we are going to knit one through the back of the loop, bring the working yarn towards the front, and then purl one through the back of the loop as well. So you're going in from behind and purling through the back loop. And that's it. That's all we're doing for the next 12 rounds of our brim. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit for you. I'll show you again. We're going to knit through the back loop, bring our yarn towards the front, and purl through the back loop. Knit through the back loop, purl through the back loop. There we go. Purling through that back loop. So just repeat the knit one, purl one through the back loop for the next 12 rounds. So this is what your twisted rib will look like. It just adds a little bit of extra texture to the hat, which I feel balances out this particular hat, but it's totally optional. If you wanted to do a regular 1x1 rib, you could do that as well. But once we're done with our rib, we're going to move on to the lateral braid, and then I'll show you the body of the hat. So we've just finished the brim, and before we begin the lateral braid, we are going to switch to our 5mm circular knitting needles, which I've already done, and we are going to knit a setup round. So we're going to work one full round of knits before we begin our lateral braid. So we are just going to knit each stitch all the way around. Just be sure that you've switched to your larger 5mm needles for this part. Okay, so we've just finished knitting our setup round. I want you to switch one more time. Well, not one more time, but I want you to switch your needles again. We are going to switch back to our 4.5mm needles. And the reason why is because the Vickle braid tends to be a looser braid. So you want to go down a needle size or two when you're knitting your Vickle or your lateral braid. So I have my smaller 4.5mm needles now, and I'm going to show you how to start the Vickle braid. So you want to first look at the first 2 stitches on your left hand needle. So here's 1 and 2, first and second stitch, and we are going to draw up a loop and add an extra stitch onto our left hand needle. We're going to go between the first and second stitch, draw up a loop, and then place that loop onto our left hand needle. So you can see here we have now this extra stitch, and that's how we are going to begin our lateral braid. So to knit our braid, we are going to knit through the back loop of the second stitch on our left hand needle, like so. And then we are not going to slip off, we're going to pivot around and then knit through the front loop of the first stitch, like so. And now we're going to slide those stitches off. And I'll show you a couple more times. So now we need to place that stitch from our right hand needle back to our left hand needle, and then repeat the process. So we're going to knit through the back loop of the second stitch on our left hand needle, we're going to swing our right needle around and knit through the front loop of the first stitch, and then slide the stitches off. Place the stitch from your right needle back onto your left hand needle, knit through the back loop of the second stitch on your left hand needle, swing your right hand needle around and knit through the front loop of the first stitch, like so, and then slide them off. And you might be able to see we're starting to create a little bit of a lateral braid, and the more you work, the clearer it will become. So we're going to knit through that back loop of the second stitch and then the front loop of the first stitch. Slide off. Place that stitch back onto the left hand needle, knit through the back loop of the second stitch and the front loop of the first stitch. Now we can start to see this little lateral chain work up. It's starting to become clearer. So place that stitch back onto your left hand needle, knit through the back loop of the second stitch and then through the front loop of the first stitch. Okay guys, so we've made it back to the stitch marker, So I'm going to go ahead and remove that for now so I can show you what to do here. This is the fun part. So right here, this first stitch, you can see this vertical leg running up and down. We are actually going to be joining and working into this first lateral braid stitch here, this little sideways V. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our crochet hook and we are going to insert it into the top of that little lateral braid stitch from top to bottom, and we are going to pick up those two little legs of the lateral braid, and I'm going to go over here and slide the first stitch from the right hand needle onto my crochet hook. Then we are going to carefully pull that stitch up through and under those two little legs of the lateral braid, and then place that stitch onto our left hand needle. Just like this. And now we are going to knit through the front loop of that stitch that we just placed onto our left hand needle. We're just going to knit that stitch like so. And this is my favorite part. Look at that seamless join. It is so satisfying. I love this method. I think this is one of the easiest and nicest ways of joining your Vickle braid. So check it out. So hopefully your lateral braid looks something like this. And once you're done joining, we're going to move on to the next round, and I'm going to show you what to do next. Okay, so before we start the body of our hat, remember when we began our lateral braid, we had to draw up an extra stitch. So before we begin knitting our hat, we need to get rid of that extra stitch. So we are going to do that by knitting these first two stitches together through the back loop. And the reason why I like to knit through the back loop is because it kind of helps to hide the stitch a little bit better, that knit two together bump that you can sometimes get. So after we knit those two stitches together, we're actually going to begin the body of our hat. Before you begin knitting the body of your hat, be sure to switch back to your 5mm needles. This is the last time, I promise. So for round 1 and round 3 of the body, we are going to simply be knitting each stitch. So not too crazy, very simple. We're going to knit the entire first round, and once you make it back to the stitch marker, I will show you what to do for round 2. Okay, so round 2 is where things start to get a little interesting. For round 2, we are going to yarn over. So that means we are going to take our working yarn and bring it towards the front of our work. We are going to knit the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then using the tip of our left hand needle, we are going to pick up that yarn over and pass it over those 2 knit stitches. And then knit the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. And that's it. We're just going to repeat those steps. So again, let me adjust my camera. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you. We are going to take our working yarn and bring it towards the front of our work. That's our yarn over. Now we will knit 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then taking the tip of our left hand needle, we are going to lift that yarn over, up, and pass it over those 2 knit stitches, and then knit 2. 1, 2. Bring your working yarn towards the front, knit the next 2 stitches. You want to be mindful of your tension here. If you pull too tight, it can make it a little bit tricky to lift your yarn up and over those 2 stitches. So just make sure that your tension isn't too tight. Pass it over and knit the next 2 stitches. And that's it. You're just going to repeat those steps until you make it all the way back to the stitch marker. And once you have completed this round, I will show you what to do for rounds 3 and 4. Okay, so I've just completed round 2, and you can see this is what our yarn overs will look like at this point. And as you continue working and your yarn overs begin to stack, it's going to look a whole lot more cohesive. So round 3 is another super simple round. We are simply just knitting each stitch all the way around, same as round 1. So we won't spend too much time here. But once you are done knitting round 3, I will meet you and show you what to do for round 4. Okay, so round 4 is very similar to round 2, except this time we are going to start with a knit 2 and then work a yarn over. So we're basically going to be alternating where we place our yarn overs, and as you continue knitting up this pattern, you're going to see the yarn overs stack and alternate, and that's what creates that scale effect. So first we will knit 2 stitches, and now we are going to yarn over. So we are going to bring our working yarn towards the front of our work and knit the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. Using the tip of our left-hand needle, we are going to pick up that yarn over and pass it over those 2 knit stitches. And there we go. You can see here how we have these alternating rounds of yarn over. And like I said, as we continue knitting and they continue to stack and build, you are going to see that scaly pattern kind of come to life. So that's it. Now we're going to begin again. We are going to knit the first 2 stitches. 1, 2. Then bring our working yarn towards the front. Knit the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. And then take that yarn over and pass it over the 2 knit stitches. So hopefully you'll start to see those yarn overs working up. And that's it for round 4. You're going to repeat those steps until you make it back to the stitch marker. Once you make it back to your stitch marker, you're just going to repeat from the beginning. So you're going to continue to repeat rounds 1 through 4 until your hat measures the length that you desire. So I wanted this hat to be a slouchy hat, so I am knitting my hat, the body of my hat, until my hat measures 9.5 inches from the brim to the top of my hat. So once my hat reaches 9.5 inches, then I'm going to begin the decrease. But this is totally up to you. If you want your hat to be a little bit shorter, you can knit until 8.5, 9 inches, whatever you prefer. It's just totally up to you. So once you have knit to your desired length, I want you to jump ahead to the second video. I'm going to break this one up into 2 parts, and I will show you how to begin decreasing your beanie.